Hi, it's Chris again with Nightfall Audiobooks. I am continuing the Cheerleaders series today. I've said it before when I did the first book, I haven't read this series. From what I understand, the second book heavily influences Netflix's Fear Street trilogy, and it introduces Sarah Fear. I really want to read that stuff because I'm very, very interested in the beginning of Fear Street, and I'm hoping that this adds a bit more context and color and history to the Fear family. If you've read the Fear Street Sagas trilogy, at the end in Book 3, Sarah Fear appears in Simon Fear's mansion, and she is on fire with everybody else. I'm eager to begin this. I wrote down the voices from the previous novel. I am going to do my best to keep everything straight, and we'll see what happens. I don't know how there are 5 of these books, but we'll see what happens. So let's begin. Please write me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I like seeing what you have to say. I like your feedback. I like your suggestions. By the way, any suggestions that I get, I put to the top of my request list, and it's a pretty big list right now. I'm also on YouTube at Nightfall Audiobooks, and I have a Patreon page, patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. Any support will be greatly appreciated. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and let's begin. Welcome to a Nightfall Audiobooks production of the Cheerleaders series, Book 2, The Second Evil, by R.L. Stine. Chapter 1. Kimmy Bass slowed her car to a stop at Division Street and tapped her fingers impatiently on the wheel. "I never make this light," she complained. Her friend, Deborah Kern, stared out the passenger window at a boy in a blue windbreaker, walking a large Doberman across the street. "What's your hurry?" she asked, wiping steam off the window with her wool-gloved hand. "You're always in such a hurry." Veronica, Ronnie Mitchell, chimed in from the back seat. The light changed. Kimmy pushed hard on the gas pedal, and the pale blue Camry lurched across the intersection. "I'm not in a hurry, I just don't like to stop," Kimmy said. Deborah shivered even though the heater was on high. She was very thin, and no matter how many t-shirts and sweaters she wore, she was always cold. Ronnie looked completely lost inside the fake raccoon coat that had once belonged to her mother, but it kept her really warm. With her curly red hair, tiny snub of a nose, and freckles, she appeared to be about 12. Outside, the wind picked up, blowing dead brown leaves across the road. It was cold for late November. Heavy clouds hovered low in the evening sky, threatening snow. "Want to do something Saturday night?" Kimmy asked, making a sharp turn onto Old Mill Road. "Hang out or something?" Deborah smoothed her straight blonde hair with a quick toss of her head. Her blue eyes, normally pale and icy, lit up. "No, I actually have a date Saturday night." "Hey, with who?" Ronnie asked, leaning over the front seat, catching the coy look in Deborah's face. "Eric Bishop," Deborah said after a suspenseful pause. Kimmy reacted with surprise. "Eric? Isn't he going with Carrie Taylor?" Deborah's face assumed a smug grin. "Not anymore?" She trailed her gloved finger along the steamed-up window, drawing a star across the glass. Ronnie settled back in her seat. "Eric Bishop?" she exclaimed. "He's definitely okay." She snuggled inside the big furry coat. "Could you turn the heat down a bit?" Kimmy ignored her. "Who are you interested in these days?" Deborah asked Kimmy, adjusting her seatbelt. "I don't know," Kimmy replied wistfully. "Nobody really." "You're still not hung up on Chip, are you?" Deborah asked, turning to study Kimmy's round face. In the light of the passing streetlights, she could see Kimmy's cheeks redden. "No way," Kimmy protested loudly. "Corky is welcome to him, really." Deborah stared hard at her. Ronnie hummed to herself. "Really," Kimmy repeated. "I mean it. I'm over Chip. I'm glad he dumped me." "Chip seems to like Kokorins," Deborah said dryly, turning back to the houses passing outside the window. First Bobby, now her sister Corky. The mention of Bobby's name brought a chill to the car. Deborah reached out to turn up the heat, but saw it was all the way up. "Bobby was so great looking," Ronnie said thoughtfully. "She was the best cheerleader I ever saw," Deborah added. "I was so jealous of her," Kimmy admitted. "I still can't believe she's dead." "Poor Corky," Deborah said, lowering her voice to nearly a whisper. "She really looked up to her sister? I can't imagine what it would be like. I mean, if my sister died, I'd—" Her voice trailed off. "Corky's been kind of weird lately," Kimmy said, keeping her eyes on the twin beams of white light ahead of her. She barely talks to anyone. I was jealous of her and her sister, too, Ronnie confessed. I mean, they were so perfect with their perfect blonde hair, and their perfect white teeth, and their perfect figures. I've tried being friendly with Corky, Kimmy said, but she just keeps that sad expression on her face and isn't friendly at all. That's why I thought maybe the three of us could. We've got to get Corky back on a cheerleader squad, Deborah said, interrupting. It was so strange when she quit last month. If she'd quit right when her sister died, I'd understand, but she waited a while to drop out. We'll get her back to normal, Ronnie said. At least, I hope she'll listen to us. Kimmy made a right turn onto Fierce Street. The sky immediately appeared to darken. Gusting winds swept around the car. Too bad you're not in sixth period study hall in the library, Deborah said. You should have seen Suki Thomas with Gary Brandt. Well, Suki was giving Gary a real sex ed class. They didn't even bother to go back to the stacks. Was she kissing him? Ronnie asked, leaning forward to hear Deborah's soft, whispery voice. I guess you could call it that. I thought Mrs. Bartlett was going to have a cow. All three girls laughed. Their laughter was cut short as the car approached the Fierce Street Cemetery. Behind a weather-beaten rail fence, the weed-choked graveyard sloped up from the street. Eerie wisps of gray mist rose up between the crooked tombstones. Corky's family should move, Deborah said, shuddering. I mean, living so close to where Bobby is buried, it's like a constant reminder. Corky visits Bobby's grave all the time, Kimmy said, shaking her head. We've got to talk to her, Ronnie said heatedly. We've got to make her forget about Bobby and the evil spirit. The evil spirit isn't dead, Deborah said suddenly. I can still feel it. Deborah, stop it, Kimmy said sharply. I know the evil spirit that killed Bobby is still alive, Deborah insisted quietly. Don't say that, Ronnie cried. You've got to stop reading those stupid books, Kimmy said. I can't believe you spend so much time with that stuff. I want to learn all I can about the occult, Deborah replied. Both of you should too. You were there that night. You were there in the cemetery and saw the evil spirit. I saw Corky fight it, and I saw it go back down into its grave, Kimmy replied impatiently, almost angrily. Oh, I don't know what I saw. It was all a bad dream. I just want to forget about it. I don't want to read any of that occult mumbo-jumbo, and I don't want to hear about it. Deborah fingered the crystal she had begun wearing around her neck soon after Bobby's funeral. But I can feel, she started. I want to get on with my life, Kimmy declared loudly. I want... She stopped in mid-sentence, her mouth open. Ronnie and Deborah followed Kimmy's gaze through the still cloudy windshield. In the darkness of the cemetery, they could see a solitary figure near the top of a small hill where the ground leveled out and some new graves stood. Wisps of gray mist snaked along her feet. She had one hand on the top of a gravestone, her head lowered as if talking to someone in the grave. It's Corky, Deborah whispered. What's she doing there? I told you, Kimmy said, slowing the car to a near stop. She visits Bobby's grave all the time. But she'll freeze, Deborah declared with a shiver. Honk the horn. She reached out to pound on the horn, but Kimmy pushed her hand away. No, don't. Why? Deborah insisted. I think it's bad luck to honk at a cemetery. Now who's the superstitious one? Deborah scoffed. She peered out into the darkness. Does she see us? Ronnie asked. No, she's still staring at the grave, Kimmy said. She rolled down her window. I'll call to her. She stuck her head out the window and called Corky's name. The gusting wind blew the name back into her face. She didn't hear you, Deborah said, staring out at Corky's unmoving figure, frail and small, surrounded by the rows of crooked gravestones. Kimmy rolled up the window, her cheeks red, her expression troubled. She tossed back her black crimped hair and continued to watch Corky's dark figure among the gravestones. What do we do now? Ronnie asked in a tiny voice. Deborah fingered her crystal as she stared out at Corky. I don't know, Kimmy replied. I don't know. Unaware that she was being watched, Corky Kokorin leaned against the cold granite of Bobby's tombstone. Her face was wet with tears, silent tears that came without warning, without crying. Tears that spilled out like the words she spoke to her dead sister. I shouldn't come here all the time, Corky said, bending low, one arm resting on top of the stone. I know I shouldn't. Sometimes I feel as if I'm pulled here, almost against my will. The wind howled through the bent trees that clung to the sloping hill. Corky didn't feel the cold. If only I could sleep, she said. If only I could fall asleep and not dream. I have such frightening dreams, Bobby. Such vivid, frightening dreams, nightmares, of that awful night here in the cemetery. The night I fought the evil spirit. She sighed and wiped away the tears with her open hands. I feel as if I'm still fighting the evil, Bobby. I'm still fighting it, even though I sent it down to its grave. Corky pressed her hot face against the cool granite. Bobby, can you hear me? She asked suddenly. As if in reply, the ground began to shake. Bobby? Corky cried, pulling herself upright in surprise. The entire hill trembled, the white gravestones quaking and tilting. Bobby? A crack formed in the dirt. Another crack zigzagged across the ground like a dark streak of lightning. As Corky gaped in disbelief, the ground over Bobby's grave split open. The crack grew wider. Wider. A bony hand reached up to the surface. Bits of flesh clung to the arm that followed the hand. Another hand clawed through the surface. A heavy stench filled the air, invading Corky's nostrils. The bony hands grappled at the edge of the crack, pulling, straining, until a head appeared, then 2 shoulders. It's you! Corky cried in horror, as her dead sister pulled herself up from the grave. Chapter 2. Bobby? Corky uttered the name in a choked whisper, her breath caught in her throat. As her dead sister rose up in front of her, Corky staggered back, bumping against Bobby's gravestone, almost toppling backward over it. Bobby, it's you! She cried, dropping to her knees on the hard frozen ground. Her sister rose, up, until she hovered over Corky. Then she glared down with sunken eyes. The skin on her face, green and peeling, sagged, ready to fall off. Her straight blonde hair was caked with wet dirt and twigs. Oh! Corky uttered a low, horrified moan, her entire body convulsed in a tremor of terror. Her dead sister stared down at her as the wind swirled and the ground shook. What is it, Bobby? Corky managed to cry out. She stared up at the hideous, rotting figure of her sister, not wanting to see what had happened to her, but unable to turn away. What is it, Bobby? Why did you leave your grave? Do you want to tell me something? Corky was so horrified, so overcome by Bobby's decaying form, she didn't know whether she had spoken the questions out loud or only thought them. As she stared up at the sunken-eyed green face, Bobby's mouth slowly began to open. The flaking, blackened lips parted as if about to speak. No sound emerged. Bobby, what is it? Corky demanded. What do you want to tell me? The black lips opened wider. The sunken eyes rolled back. The wind swirled loudly. Corky stared up expectantly, unable to get off her knees, gripped by horror. The lips parted even wider, and a fat brown worm curled out from Bobby's mouth. No! Corky's shrill scream rose and swirled with the raging wind. She covered her eyes and lowered her head, fighting the waves of nausea that rolled through her body. When she looked back up a few seconds later, blinking hard, struggling to breathe, Bobby was gone. The ink-black sky was clear. Pale moonlight filtered gently down. The winds had stopped. The cemetery was deserted, silent. The ground over her sister's grave wasn't split or cracked open. It didn't happen, she realized. It was another dream, another nightmare about Bobby. I was asleep, Corky thought. I was leaning against Bobby's gravestone, and I fell asleep. I'm always so tired these days. I can never fall asleep at night. I can never sleep the night through because of the nightmares. Yes, I was asleep. She stared at the dark ground, solid, silent. I must have dreamed it, she thought. The ground trembling, the gravestones shaking and tilting, the bony hand reaching out through the crack in the earth, the grotesque figure of her sister, green and rotting, covered with dirt and insects. All a hideous dream. What am I going to do? She asked aloud. What can I do to make these nightmares end? She turned back to the low gravestone, lowering her head to talk once again to Bobby. I'm not going to visit for a while, she said softly, her voice muted by the heavy chill in the air. At least, I'm going to try to stay away. The wind picked up and gently stirred the trees. There seems to be whispering all around. It's not that I want to forget you, Bobby, Corky continued with a loud sob. It's just that I'm still alive, and I have to... She stopped abruptly. I'm sorry. I'm not making any sense. I have to go. It's late, and I'm cold. Bobby is even colder, she thought. The grim thought made her shudder. Bobby, I really... She stopped short and uttered a brief cry. Something moved behind a tall marble monument. A squirrel? No, it was too big to be a squirrel. Staring into the darkness, surrounded by the ceaseless whispers, Corky saw a dark form hunkered down behind the monument. A hand moved, then was quickly pulled back. A head, the face hidden in shadow, poked out, then disappeared just as quickly. Someone is here, Corky realized. Someone is watching me. The whispers grew louder as once again the wind swirled around her. Before she realized it, she had pushed herself away from Bobby's gravestone and was running down the sloping hill. Panting loudly, she made her way through the crooked rows of stones, her sneakers slipping on the wet grass, on the flat, dead brown leaves. Tall, wet weeds swished against the legs of her jeans. Without slowing, she glanced back, and saw that he was following her. It was a man, or maybe a boy. He had the dark hood of his sweatshirt pulled up over his head. He was running fast, breathing hard, his breath steaming up over the dark hood. She could see only a triangle of his face, saw part of his nose and eyes, hard, determined eyes, angry eyes, gray eyes, so pale they were almost colorless. Pale, gray, ghost-like eyes. "Somebody help me!" Corky wanted to cry out, but she could only pant in terror as she fled. His shoes pounded the ground, so close behind her. Or was that the pounding of her heart? Who was he? Why was he spying on her? Why was he chasing her? The questions made her dizzy as she ran, gasping in mouthfuls of the heavy, cold air. Ran through the darkness, ran toward the street, Fear Street. Her house was only a block away. Would she make it? She was nearly to the street, running hard, her right side aching, the footsteps pounding behind her. "Ow!" She cried out as her leg hit a low tombstone. As the pain shot up her leg, she fell and toppled forward, her arms and legs sprawling out as she dropped face down into a pile of wet leaves. Chapter 3. "Corky?" At first she didn't recognize the voice. "Corky!" She raised her head, scrambled to her feet, frantically brushing at the wet leaves clinging to the front of her coat. "Hey, Corky!" The voice came from the street, from the little blue car just beyond the curb. "Kimmy!" she cried. "Oh, Kimmy!" Kimmy was running toward her, her eyes wide with concern. Behind Kimmy, Corky could see Deborah and Ronnie climbing out of the car. He's chasing me!" Corky cried breathlessly. She skidded to a stop. Kimmy protectively threw her arms around Corky's shoulders. "What's wrong, Corky?" "What is it?" Ronnie called, hurrying up to them. "He's chasing me!" Corky turned and pointed behind her. No one. No hooded man, no pale, pale eyes. Vanished. Or was he another nightmare? Corky shuddered. Her side ached. Her ankle throbbed from its collision with the granite tombstone. Another nightmare? Just a hallucination? "We've got to get you home," Kimmy said, her arms still around Corky's shoulders. "Come on, Corky, come with us," she urged softly. "It's freezing out here," Ronnie exclaimed, wrapping her big coat tightly around herself. Deborah remained silent, staring up at the crooked gravestones in an old section of the cemetery. Intense concentration froze her face. She reached for the crystal she wore around her neck and, still gazing up at the old stones, moved her lips in some sort of silent chant. "Deborah, come on!" Kimmy's voice from near the car interrupted Deborah's concentration. She turned, still distracted, and followed her friends to the car. A short while later, Kimmy pulled the Camry up the gravel drive beside the Kokorins' rambling old house and cut the engine. The four girls jogged to the front porch. Corky fumbled with her keys before finally managing to push open the front door. They all stepped inside. "Brr!" Deborah shivered and stamped her feet. "Deborah, it isn't that cold," Kimmy scolded. "Ah!" A screaming figure leapt out at them from the living room. "Sean, give us a break," Corky told her little brother, rolling her eyes. "I scared you," Sean grinned, his blue eyes lighting up. With his straight blonde hair and high cheekbones, he looked like a smaller, more angelic version of Corky. "We really don't feel like being scared right now," Kimmy told him, tossing her coat onto the banister. "Do you feel like playing Nintendo?" Sean asked, tugging her arm. "Nintendo? Yeah, I've got Mega Man 2. "Not right now," Kimmy told him. "Just a short game," Sean insisted, pulling Kimmy toward the stairs. Kimmy turned helplessly to Corky. "Sean, take a hike," Corky said sharply. "We can't play with you now." She poked her head into the living room. "Where are Mom and Dad?" Sean reluctantly let go of Kimmy's sleeve. "Next door." "Come on in," Corky told the three girls, motioning to the living room. "I'm going to run into the kitchen and put on a kettle. I'll make hot chocolate." "That sounds great," Deborah exclaimed, rubbing her shoulders, still shivering. "I hate hot chocolate," Sean offered loudly. "Sean, please," Corky cried. She pointed. "Upstairs? Now." "You're a jerk," was his reply, one he used about 100 times a day. He stuck his tongue out at her, then loped up the stairs to his room. Corky clicked on the floor lamp beside the leather couch against the wall. Pale light washed over the living room, which was decorated mainly in greens and browns. "I'll be right back," she told the others. She hesitated at the doorway. What were you doing there? I mean, at the cemetery. Deborah flashed Kimmy a hesitant look. Well? We were looking for you, Kimmy explained. We were headed to your house, but we stopped when we saw you, She hesitated to finish her sentence. Corky's pale cheeks reddened. I was at Bobby's grave. I go there sometimes. No one could think of a reply. A heavy silence hung over the room. I'll go put on the kettle, Corky said, and hurried out of the room. As she held the kettle under the tap, her mind whirred from thought to thought. She tried to figure out why the 3 cheerleaders had come to find her. Corky hadn't spent any time with them since dropping off from the cheerleading squad. They always acted very friendly when she passed them in the halls at school, but Corky really hadn't talked with them in weeks. Hearing an odd noise, Corky glanced out the kitchen window into the darkness. 2 cats were chasing each other over the deep carpet of brown leaves that covered the backyard. Their chase reminded her of being pursued by the strange hooded man with the cold gray eyes. With a shudder, she hurried back to her visitors. She found Kimmy and Deborah seated on opposite ends of the couch. Kimmy was tapping her fingers nervously on the arm. Deborah had her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Ronnie was standing by the window, hands on her slender hips, staring out at the driveway. She turned when Corky re-entered the room. I think we're warming up, she said. Corky moved quickly to the armchair that faced the couch. She sat down, and a rude noise erupted from under the chair cushion. Sean! She screamed angrily, jumping to her feet. She reached under the cushion and pulled out her brother's pink whoopee cushion. Her 3 visitors laughed. My family loves practical jokes, Corky explained, rolling her eyes. She tossed a flattened whoopee cushion across the room. Your brother's funny, Deborah said, tucking her legs under her. You want him? Corky offered. She resumed her place in the chair. Ronnie moved in front of the couch and flopped down on the carpet, crossing her legs in front of her. Corky, how are you? Kimmy asked finally in a concerned tone. Okay, I guess, Corky replied quickly, avoiding Kimmy's eyes. Were you at the game last night? Ronnie asked. No, Corky shook her head. An uncomfortable silence. Corky cleared her throat. The repetitive electronic music of Sean's Nintendo game drifted down from upstairs. So, why'd you want to see me? Corky asked. We want you to come back on the squad, Ronnie blurted out. Yeah, that's why we came, Kimmy said, locking her blue eyes on Corky's. I don't know, Corky replied, shaking her head. She brushed away a strand of blonde hair that had fallen over an eye. The squad really needs you, Kimmy said. It isn't the same without you. Really? Ronnie added earnestly. That's nice of you, Corky said, avoiding their eyes. But her mind suddenly returned to the days when Bobby was on the squad. She remembered how angry Kimmy had been when Bobby was named cheerleader captain. She remembered how Kimmy had tried to turn the other girls against Bobby. Now, Kimmy was the captain, Bobby was dead, and Kimmy had gotten what she always wanted. So why was she here begging Corky to rejoin the squad? Why not give it a chance? Kimmy urged her. Yeah, just come practice a few times, Ronnie suggested, twirling an opal ring on her index finger. Let's be honest, Corky blurted out. You girls all resented Bobby and me. Her blunt words seemed to freeze in the air. Kimmy and Ronnie looked stunned for a brief moment. Deborah swallowed hard. Things have changed, Corky, Kimmy said finally. Then she added, since that night. Deborah dropped her hands to her lap. She stared out the window with her icy blue eyes, her face pale in the harsh light of the floor lamp. We've all changed, I think, Kimmy continued, lowering her voice. I know I have. Corky sighed but didn't say anything. I was there with you that night, Kimmy said heatedly. I saw the evil spirit, too. I saw the dirt flying up from that old grave. I can't get it out of my mind. I can't either, Ronnie added. I still have nightmares about it. Me too, Deborah whispered. It's changed me, Kimmy said, continuing to stare at Corky. I didn't lose a sister like you did, but it's changed me. I used to be angry a lot of the time. You're right when you say I resented you and Bobby. I'm not as thin or as pretty or as talented as you, but after that horrible night in the cemetery, I don't care so much about that stuff. I saw how fragile life is. It made us all stop and think about what's important, Ronnie interrupted. I've changed too. And you've changed too, Kimmy told Corky. We've all seen it. We understand. Deborah nodded but remained silent. That's why we think it would be good for you to come back to the squad, Ronnie said. We really want to help. We should be friends, Kimmy said, round spots of pink growing darker on her cheeks. We went through something really frightening together. Now we should be friends. Corky stared at them, one after another. They're sincere, she decided. They really mean it. They came here out of friendship, out of concern for me. They really have changed." Corky had a sudden urge to leap across the coffee table and hug all three of them. Instead, she stammered, It's really nice of you. To come, I mean, to ask me back. I'll think about it. I really will." "Come to practice after school," Kimmy urged. "You can just watch if you want." "Well," Corky climbed to her feet and, wrapping her arms over the front of her sweater, crossed over to the window. "The spark is just missing without you," Ronnie said, her eyes following Corky across the room. "We haven't replaced you," Kimmy added. "Your place on the squad is waiting for you, really." "Thanks," Corky said, sincerely moved. She gazed out the window and gasped, "Oh, it's him!" The hooded man with the strange, ghostly eyes. He must have followed her home. As Corky gaped in fright, he strode over the shadowy front lawn, moving quickly toward the house.